Objective 18.3 says define, identify, and label predominant area in terms of harmonic function. Objective 18.4 says label tonic, predominant, and dominant function as a contextual analysis of real music examples. From the learning resources, you should now know that the Roman numeral chords that most commonly elicit a predominant function are the 4 chord and the 2 chord. Furthermore, in order for these to exhibit a predominant function, they should be followed by the dominant function. So for example, if you had a 1 chord and then a 4 chord and then a 1 chord, that 4 chord probably does not exhibit predominant function because it's not followed by a 5 chord, or it's not followed by a dominant functioning chord. Let's look at this example. So we have a tonic, predominant, dominant, then tonic function happening here. The act of going from 1 to 4 to 5 to 1, or the tonic, predominant, dominant, tonic, is referred to by many theorists as the phrase model. Tonic, predominant, dominant, tonic. I see an A major chord here. I see a D major chord here. I see an E major chord here. And I see an A major chord here. Roman numeral analysis would be 1, then 4, then 5, then 1. They are all in root position as the lowest sounding voice plays the root of each of those chords, A, D, E, A. Let's listen to it again and really key in on the cello line. So in this case, the harmonic function, or the contextual analysis, would give us a tonic function, then a predominant function, then a dominant function, and then a tonic function again. You might want to go back and listen to that a few more times. It might take a little bit of effort to hear that cello line, but that will aid you in hearing the 1-4-5-1 motion. Let's also talk about 18.5 at this time. 18.5 says correctly notate proper voice leading of a 2 to 5-7 and 4 to 5-7, as well as 2-7 to 5-7 and 4-7 to 5-7. And basically the only rule here is to avoid parallel fifths and parallel octaves. Let's see how this example does that. We have a D major chord in root position going to an E major chord in root position. If we just moved everything up by step, that would give us the correct chords, but it would be moving entirely by parallel motions, and those parallel fifths would not keep the integrity of the independent voices. The best way to combat that is with contrary motion, and that's what the composer has done here. The D is going up to E, and this A is going down to G. It happens that the F sharp is also going down to E. Here we have a piece in A major, and when these eighth note lines come in, we see the phrase model. A chord, D chord, E chord, A chord. Roman numeral analysis. 1, 4, 5, 1, all in root position. Contextual analysis. Tonic, predominant, dominant, tonic. In terms of voice leading, 18.5, we see the 4 chord going to the 5 chord, the root position is going up by step, and all the other voices go down in contrasting motion. The 2 chord often also functions as a predominant chord, and it shares 2 note members with the 4 chord. Here's an example in C major. In this excerpt, this set of eighth notes cadences here on a G major chord, which is a 5 chord in C major, and it has a dominant function. That type of cadence ending on a 5 chord is called a half cadence. The chord preceding it has a predominant function and is a D minor chord in first inversion. 2 chords, especially diminished 2 chords that are found in minor keys, are often found in an inverted form. This 2 chord has a predominant function followed by the dominant functioning chord. Predominant, dominant. In terms of 18.5 in the voice leading from a 2 chord to a 5 chord, again, we want to avoid parallel fifths and octaves. This composer does that successfully here. We also see the bass note going up and the other notes coming down in contrasting motion. Objective 18.5 says, correctly notate proper voice leading of 2 to 5/7 and 4 to 5/7, as well as 2/7 to 5/7 and 4/7 to 5/7. Let's look at this example. In the opening bar here, we have a 2/7 going to 5/7. The 2/7 occurs right here. It is in first inversion. We have an E, G, B, D chord. What we're looking for here, as is almost always the case in Western music, is to avoid parallel fifths. And a very common way of doing that is if we have ascending motion in the bass, we'll see a lot of contrasting motion downward in the other voices. And we see that here. This note stays the same, this note steps down, this note steps down, this note steps the same, this note leaps down. In addition, D is the chordal 7th of our 2 chord, and when a chordal 7th appears with a 5 chord, we have a pretty hard set rule that it must resolve down by step. With chords that are not the 5 chord, if we have a 7th, we would like it to resolve down by step. That should be our first option. And we see that's what happens in this piece of real music as well. Keep in mind, if you're writing an exercise and you have something other than the 5 chord, and you have a chordal 7th, and you try to make it go down by step, but that in itself causes parallel fifths, then that would be a reason to make an exception to that rule. Let's look at this example. In this one, in the second measure, we have this figure that goes dee-da-dum, and then it goes up here, dee-da-dum. That's the melody. In that sense, it's that melody line is not really restricted to the voice leading rules because that's the melody line. That's the very specific musical figure that the composer is relating to their listener. We can see these other voices are involved in primarily harmony. They don't have a counter melody or a melodic interest. They're just filling in a chord. Therefore, it'd be best to have good voice leading of them to avoid parallel fifths and as such. That will allow us to hear the underlying harmony while still having our attention drawn to the melody top line. Again, this is another 2 chord in second inversion going to a 5 chord from the second measure to the third measure. In the key of A major, the 2 chord is B, D, F, A. There is no leading tone, and the A is our chordal 7th, and this composer has the A going down by step, which is ideal for us.